Hello everyone, my name is Tony Budgett Price, and I have selected as my topic of my presentation the case of Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was a young man that attended school in Bath, Ohio, and was somewhat removed and not a very outgoing person. Jeffrey Dahmer, at the age of 6, underwent surgery that was done to correct a double hernia. His parents noticed shortly after the actual surgery that Jeffrey began to be a lot more reserved and to himself a lot more, whereas prior he was an outgoing young man. After the operation that took place when Dahmer was 6 years of age, he still had some natural boyish curiosities going on. He was intrigued by learning how the inside of various animals looked. So he actually wanted to take animals as he encountered them and dissect them to know what their insides looked like. This desire then progressed later in his life at age 14 to wanting to know what a human would look like if they were dissected. And taking that curiosity and or desire on into his young adulthood, Dahmer found himself intermingling the desire to have sexual relations with young men along with that desire to know what their insides looked like. So Jeffrey Dahmer became a senior in high school, graduated, and the year of 1978 was the year that he committed his first murder. He actually killed a young man by the name of Stephen Hicks, where he encountered Mr. Hicks hitchhiking when he was actually on his way home. Jeffrey Dahmer carried this gentleman home where they both decided to have sex and to have beers and hang out a little. But then Hicks was prepared to leave, and Dahmer was not really ready for Hicks to leave, and instead of allowing him to leave, Dahmer hit the young man over the head with barbells to kill him. At which time, Dahmer, to dispose of the body before his parents returned home, he dismembered the body and bagged the body up in several plastic bags and later buried the body in the backyard. Dahmer was then shortly thereafter enrolled in Ohio State College, to where he went for a semester. He actually flunked out of college, or flunked out of that semester due to alcoholism. He returned home, at which time his father demanded that he enlist in the Army, which he did, and Dahmer went away for 2 years with the Army and was later released due to alcoholism, or discharged, I should say, due to alcoholism. He returned home to his father, and the father then requested that Jeffrey Dahmer is then sent to live with his grandmother in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That was 9 years later. Dahmer committed his second murder, and within the murders that Dahmer actually performed, he would meet young men at the gay bars and invite them over to his apartment, at which time he would actually make mixed drinks for the victim and lace the drink with sleeping drugs that would cause the person to then become unconscious. After the young man has become unconscious, then Dahmer would then strangle them and or stab them to death, and then he would at that point either engage in sex with that individual or masturbate on them. After that act was performed, Dahmer would then dismember the body, keeping the head and the genitals as trophies. And the remainder parts of the body, Dahmer would then add acid to the body and allow it to become a black liquidy substance, to which he would then dispose of it down the drains of his sink. The heads in which Dahmer would cut from the victim's body, several of them were placed in his refrigerator and preserved in that manner. There was one young man that did, actually there were two young men that managed to get away from Dahmer's apartment to go for help. The first young man was only 14 years of age, and he was able to leave the apartment because Dahmer had left the apartment to go to the store for some reason. And while Dahmer was gone, the young man was able to get out, and he actually left the apartment nude and wandered into the street, and two young ladies found him walking nude and knew that there was something wrong. The young ladies then informed the police, called the police to ask or to let the authority know that there was a young man that was walking the street in the nude, and that there was another man not far behind that he appeared to be afraid of. The two police that responded to the call did show up, and as the two young women were attempting to explain what they had witnessed, the police asked them or told them that they could be excused because that they would handle the situation from that point forward. At which time Dahmer appeared on the scene and explained to the officers that this was his lover and that they both had just had a heated argument, and that things just kind of got out of hand. So the police then escorted the young man back to Dahmer's apartment, and not wanting to engage in a domestic dispute, the police left the scene. Within minutes later thereafter, Dahmer did commence to murder this young man. Dahmer was able to murder 14 victims without being caught. The second young man that did get away from Dahmer completely was a young man that was able to notify the police after leaving Dahmer's apartment to let the police know that Dahmer had drugged him and was attempting to kill him. The police then asked that this young man take them back to the apartment to where this allegedly happened. Upon arrival, Dahmer actually answered the door in a very calm manner, invited them in, and I failed to mention that this young man fled with a handcuff on one of his hands. So Dahmer, when the police arrived on the scene, invited the police to come into his apartment, and he also stated that they too had actually had an altercation. It got heated, and he apologized for his behavior, and he offered to go and get the key to unlock the handcuff. Well, on his way to his bedroom to obtain the key, one of the police officers followed him into the bedroom. When the police arrived to his bedroom and saw several pictures of dismembered bodies, one of the pictures that the police witnessed was a picture of a severed head inside of a refrigerator, which appeared to be Dahmer's refrigerator. The police then went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and found several heads that Dahmer had preserved and placed in his fridge. The police then yelled to his partner to go ahead and cuff Dahmer go ahead and arrest Dahmer. And this is how Jeffrey Dahmer was caught for the murders that he committed throughout the course of, I do believe that was from 1978 through 1991. After the investigation that took place at Dahmer's apartment, where they found a vat full of acid to where Dahmer utilized to preserve some of the body parts, that was taken out for investigation, as well as Dahmer's refrigerator and other tools that Dahmer utilized within his murder spree, such as drills that he used to actually perform lobotomies on victims and hoping to zombify them, to make them into zombies by placing holes within their skull and then inserting some type of acid. But of course, that process never worked. It always killed the victim instantly. Dahmer indicated that his actions were this way because he actually had a desire to have control over someone that he was very attracted to. He never wanted them to leave. He always wanted to feel as if they were there with him. So that is why he chose to save body parts as trophies. He also elected to participate in cannibalism, where some of his victims, he would eat the actual thigh muscle and or bicep of that individual, and he described the texture of the meat as being quite similar to beef. In particular, the thigh muscle he described as being very tough and chewy. But the investigation that was performed did not last very long, because Dahmer himself actually described all of his murders to the investigator that actually interrogated him. So I hope that the paper that I have enclosed will then paint an even more vivid picture for you to know the actual acts and the investigation as it took place and unfolded as it relates to the Jeffrey Dahmer case. Thank you.